Hi, everybody. Oh, I wasn't expecting that. Hello. Um, you all disappeared and I appeared. Um, Welcome to the January 2023 Author Showcase for Straw Dog Writers Guild. These are actually people who published books in 2022. Um, Not everyone is got to be included this time, but hopefully we'll have another one of these events soon. This has been our way of throwing a party for our members, and we really want to celebrate the miracle that everyone here published a book this year. So I'll begin by telling you a little bit about Straw Dog. We're doing this in conjunction with the Forbes Library, and Molly Moss is also on this call. If you could just wave, Molly, I'm not sure that's easy. Yes, that is. Anyway, and if you wanted to just say hello to anybody, that would be great.
I just want to say that Forbes Library is thrilled to be co-hosting this with Straw Dogs again. And we have other author events happening as well that I'll put a link in the chat for.
Great. Straw Dog is a nonprofit volunteer organization dedicated to the craft and transformative power of writing. We serve writers throughout the region and now beyond by promoting individual growth, community outreach, enrichment, and community building. We welcome all writers, whether you're working to illuminate your own way here in the dark of winter or challenging the dominant paradigm in relation to topics of class, race, gender, cultural, or neurodiversity. We welcome explorers of all kinds. We do this by hosting events. Largely, we have craft programs almost every month, sometimes more than one in a month. We have monthly open mics in Northampton and also in Longmeadow, even though the one in Longmeadow is not meeting in January, it will be meeting in February. We have monthly poetry and prose critique groups led by Celia Jeffries and Michael Favala Goldman. We offer week-long residencies that people apply for from all over the world, and people spend a week at Edith Wharton's former home in the Berkshires, well, nearby, but anyway, they get to work in Edith Wharton's home in the Berkshires, the Mount. We also offer a fellowship for an emerging writer, and we have an event in June called Voices for Resistance, which is really particularly special to me, where highly accomplished writers who are working to make the world better will read and then have a discussion. Because we're a volunteer organization, we welcome your energy and ideas. You can support Straw Dog Writers Guild in so many ways. You can join, even though our programs are free and we love donations. If you join, you help to support the ongoing. We have one paid person who does a lot of our social media, so we need that. You can offer to teach a writing workshop or craft workshop for a small stipend, or you can just make any donations. Becky Jones, as you might see, is helping with this event, and she will post a link in the chat related to our website. And all more info is there. But now I'm very happy to introduce our MC for this evening. Narissa Niels is a musician and writer living in Western Massachusetts. You may know her because of the band she founded with her sister, the Niels. Her publications include Blueprint, a short story in Jay Journal of the John Jay Law School, the use of the Brahms Scherzo in The Yellow Bird Sings by Jennifer Rosner in the Maine Review, a novel, Plastic Angel, another book on music, all together singing in the kitchen, creative ways to make and listen to music as a family, and the book How to Be an Adult. In addition, her work has been anthologized a lot, and in water music, a celebration of water from around the globe, the Good Mother myth, and other publication credits as well, Huffington Post, Boston Globe, Performing Songwriter, American Songwriter, and our own Daily Hampshire Gazette. She is, most significantly for a lot of you, director of Writing It Up in the Garden workshops and retreats in Northampton, Massachusetts. She holds a BA from Yale University and an MFA from Vermont College of Fine Arts. Currently, she's working on the third of her trilogy of wonderful novels about a family band. I'm handing it over to you, Narissa.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Becky, and thank you, Molly, for hosting this wonderful event. It's a tremendous act of faith and perseverance to bring a book into the world, and we are just celebrating our 10 writers today, and I cannot wait to get this party started and to hear some of your sentences and lines. So without further ado, let's bring to the stage Stephen D. Brewer, who will be reading from his new novel, Crossing the Streams, which is part 4 of a series called Revan's Heart.
Thank you very much. I'm Stephen D. Brewer. This is from Crossing the Streams, which you can see this is part 4 of Revan's Heart, my queer steampunky fantasy adventure serialized by Water Dragon Publishing. To set this up, Revan and his companions who are traveling undercover have just lost their coachman. In the morning, Revan tried to hook up the horses to the coach and discovered he had absolutely no idea what he was doing. He'd never worked with horses before. There had been some ponies in the mines in his town growing up, but he'd never done more than ride on one once as a child at a fair. He tried to fake his way through it and managed to get the tacking on. The horses weren't happy, though. Moreover, they seemed to be able to tell that he was nervous, and one gave him a painful nip. They also evidently had particular places they wanted to be in the team and were quite nasty about Revan getting it wrong. As Revan brought the next horse to the coach, it tried to kick him. He partially dodged, but a glancing blow still caught him in the solar plexus and knocked the wind out of him. He sat on the ground, gasping. He was coming to despise horses. "Are you all right?" the professor asked from inside the coach. "No," Revan growled. "These horses are going to be the death of me." The professor chuckled as Revan got back to his feet, brushed himself off, and got back to getting the team hooked up. Eventually, after they were all in their traces, Revan tied up the other 2 horses to the rear of the coach. Then he climbed onto the box, released the brake, shook the reins, and clicked his tongue as he'd heard the coachman do. The horses shuffled a bit, but did nothing. Revan growled and picked up the coach whip, and only then did the horses begin to walk, and with a bit more encouragement by snapping the reins, he got them to trot. After perhaps an hour, Revan noticed that the horses were not in sync and kept shying to the right. He slowed down near a farm, trying to figure out what the problem was. A young woman pulling weeds in the garden looked up as they went by. Revan tried to guess her age, but she was skinny, almost malnourished, Revan thought, which made her age hard to ascertain. She was barefoot, wearing a grubby shift, and wore a leather collar round her neck like a dog. "You have the harness hooked up wrong, mister," she said. "Here now, missy," the foreman said. "What have I told you about talking to passers-by?" "No, boss," she said with a terrified expression. "Please don't." The foreman pulled out the switch he had tucked in his belt and started to thrash the girl, who lay in the dirt sobbing. Revan set the brake, checked that he still had his sword, and jumped down from the box. "Hold on," he said. "Mind your own business, mister," the foreman said, "unless you want to buy this worthless thing." "Buy?" Revan asked, aghast. "She owes 2 Reggies," he said, "and until she pays it off, she works for me." Revan reached into his pocket, pulled out the 2 Reggies he'd gotten the night before. "Here," he said. "What?" the man said, stunned. "Here, take the money. She's mine now." "Now wait just a minute," the foreman said, beginning to recover his aplomb. Revan fixed the man with a glare, started to reach for his sword, then realized he still had the coach whip hanging from his wrist on its cord. He grasped it and menaced the foreman with one hand while still holding out the coins in the other. "Here's your money," he snapped. "Let her go." "Fine," he snarled, snatching the coins. "Good riddance. She's your problem now." Revan crouched next to the girl and extended a hand. She cautiously accepted it, and Revan helped her to her feet. "My name is Revan," he said. "What's yours?" "Lydia, my lord," she replied. "Are you my boss now? Are you going to use that on me?" "What? No," Revan said, releasing the whip so it hung again from the cord around his wrist. "No, that was for these stupid horses." "Horses aren't stupid," she said. "You just have to know how to talk to them." "Well, would you talk to them for us?" Revan asked simply. She looked at him uncomprehendingly at first, then her eyes got bigger as she started to dare to hope. "Really?" she asked. "Really," Revan said. "Now let's get that collar off." "But I have to wear the collar until my indenture is done," she said. Revan loosened the collar and removed it from her neck. There, he said, done, complete, finished, over. She stood motionless, speechless. Then tears started to fall. Revan wished he had a handkerchief or something to give her. You're free now, Revan said, and that means you don't have to come with us, and I will understand if you choose not to. You don't know us at all. But if you're willing to take care of our horses and drive the coach, I'll pay you the same as we were paying our previous coachman. She nodded and walked over to the horses, still crying freely. She went up to each horse, rubbed its nose, and whispered to it too quietly for Revan to hear. Then, when she had recovered her composure, she adjusted and reconnected the harnesses and joined Revan on the box. She lifted the reins lightly and shook them once. The horses immediately started trotting and fell into a comfortable rhythm. Revan leaned back with a smile, looked up at the sky, and then closed his eyes. Things were looking up. And I think I'll stop there.
Ha! Wonderful. Wow. All right. I'm a fan of Lydia. Horses aren't stupid. You just have to know how to talk. That was a great inciting incident. I'm in. I want to read the entire book and probably the entire series. A reminder to everyone, if you want to make comments in the chat to a writer, be sure to say their name at the beginning, because we're going to want to look back over this, and sometimes, great reading, and we're all just going to take credit for that. So be sure to say the name of the person when you're saying nice compliments. So up next, we've got Audrey Child, who will be reading from her new memoir called Over Home. Oh, you're muted still.
Sorry about that. Okay, I'm reading from Loose Ends, which is a story about my childhood in Henry, Illinois. And that's me on the cover with my Uncle Dick. River, hills, and valley. The river, hills, the valley. Those are the places where I can see my dad. First of all, driving his Plymouth on the mail route, starting off every morning with a loaded car. He left the house early to go down to the post office and sort the mail into bundles, pulling into manageable packages with a leather strap. He could reach over into the back seat and lift one into the front seat when the last one was delivered to the mailbox. Then he would drive on to the next farm on straight roads on the flat plains above the valley. That was his territory. It was the place he knew where he was most at home, where he fit in. It was the places where I liked him most. My memories are centered on our houses, all those places we moved to in the 18 years I lived at home. Also, the house of my grandparents, the funeral home where Bob and Bobo presided over Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, when the cousins from Peoria came and my aunts and mom and Bobo produced the feasts that we counted on every year. I also knew every street in that town, memorized after I learned to ride a bike, and had the freedom of the town long before I could drive a car. The streets were laid out in a skewed grid that ruined my sense of direction for life. The active memories of Dad at home mostly have to have tension, anger, rejection, and blame attached. The clear memories to which Dad belongs are in the hills and the river and the valley. The times he just appeared at the schoolroom door and said he was going to take us with him. That meant that it was an unseasonable day in early spring when it felt like June, steamy, sunny, warm for several days, probably following some rain, when the morel mushrooms would be popping up in its secret places. Over the river into some bottomland along a creek, probably with some old apple tree scattered among the wildflowers. We'd walk carefully, looking for those little tan sponges on stalks that came up among the dried leaves. Once we spotted one, they seemed to be everywhere. We'd pick enough to fill a brown paper bag and feel elation and expectation of the supper that Mom would make that night. lost my place. My dad delivered mail to all the farms north of Henry. He would get up early, go to the post office downtown and sort the mail, then come home for breakfast before starting the delivery that would take him back and forth on country roads until noon. It was an all-weather job. Some days he'd come home in the middle of the afternoon if there was a lot of snow. Out on the prairie, snow would drift over the roads, which could become impassable. Other times it was a lovely drive with a stop now and then for coffee at Joe's blacksmith shop or a detour to see the new colts at a farm. Dad was frequently called to run errands, a tractor part from the dealer in town, a medicine for a sick kid, or even a loaf of bread. Dad would answer all requests and bring whatever was needed. I can see him driving the car, sometimes even humming or singing a teasing nonsense song. We'd be going to visit Grandma or Aunt Hollis or on a trip to Peoria. He didn't hum or sing songs at home. Those memories of him at home are tied up with the reasons I left, the reasons I criticized my mother for letting him treat her the way he did, the reasons I didn't want my children to grow up under his shadow. The memories of him in the low hills along the river and the woods and the high flat fields are of another man. The memories everyone else in 3 counties had of him. They are true in the same way that the ones that we had who lived in a house with him are true.
Wow. Wow. That is a beautiful, beautiful insight and reading of the way everyone we know has 2 sides and 2 versions of themselves. And I loved that vision of hunting for morals and the mushrooms popping up in the marshland, little tan sponges. It's just gorgeous. I have a real sense of this place. Beautifully done. Thank you. So next up, we have Roxanne E. Bogart, who will be reading from her first full-length book of poetry, All That Sustains. Congratulations, Roxanne.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is my first book of poetry. I'll be reading 3 poems from All That Sustains. And the first one is entitled Answers. I hear bellows of whales and high-pitched vibrations echo across Atkins Reservoir, like sheets of metal being shaken. Sounds of a vast ice crust being birthed from within, rising, then stretching out to seal the surface, bank to bank. Ice appears as so many amoebas, long crystalline spears, small shards of glass, like lava formed from cooling magma, as Pahoho or Aa, curved or edged. Stone and ice transform in similar fashion. I once met a man army-bound who sat with me one evening on a hillside where he shared his story of recording the sound of sheet metal being shaken, playing it back to high school classmates over the loudspeaker at lunch. He then asked each student to guess the sound. So many answers, he said, none correct, but that wasn't the point. He believed in reincarnation, wanted to return as a flower because they are beautiful and peaceful, he said. I wonder now where he is as I listen to the reservoir's metallic yodeling and wait for the ice to deepen, become the bridge I will cross, linking shore to island, where I will go once again to listen to the deep silence where all the answers lie. And my second poem is entitled The Wish. She sinks her hands deep into soil, gardening gloves left lying on the shelf. Her skin longs for dirt's cool sweat, to feel worms wriggle as her nails fill with blackness. She softens the soil, shoves hard with the cylindrical trowel, creating deep, round holes, squeezes flowers from their pots, tears roots, before laying them gently into the openings prepared. Wild geranium here, verbena there, in beds of wetness and nourishment, space to absorb from above and below all they need to grow, to become. When she is done, she leaves the yard for the forest trail, climbs the rutted rocky hill, rising along Dean's Brook, reaches the right-of-way that opens wide with western views of shapely hills, and plants herself on a fallen log. A raven lands on a nearby tree branch, joining another, black feathers gleaming in late day sun. She hears them grunt and growl to one another in guttural tones, a corvid conversation continuing for eons. She looks down at her black fingernails. As the edges of her body dissolve, remembers why she has come, imagines black spreading up her arms, launching her wild, dark body into the wind of the world. And the last poem for tonight, and I'm so happy to be here, and thanks to Straw Dog Writers Guild and Forbes Library for hosting this event, is A Mist of Words, after Patricia Fargnoli. The morning opens like a lily on its long stem of day, conversations of house wrens and tanagers in the shadows of the understory. I want to be the shining raindrops falling fast, landing in rounded beauty, reflecting the world, all who look into their mystery. The words I need to make it through the day fall few and softly in my head like the downiest feather. Help me from turning away from all that sustains. I settle into the mist of words, choose among the many that keep me moving along a trail of hope. In the night, dreams come and go before I can hold on to any wisdom that could shape me upon waking. Though stars remain hidden in the sky, they are all I can remember of sleep. Later, rain summons me into the day, and I feel your emptiness with each turn of the fan, air moving across my waking skin. Puddles disappear from the damp porch as the sun rises, shouting from its hot mouth, and I relinquish stillness. Reality shifts like a swallow swerving into its prey, scattering in the air thousands across space, fragments of a life that cannot be put together, evolving like wind beyond what my mind, my arms can hold. Once broken, once lost, it is hard to recover just what was. The endless flowing down river as words keep planting themselves across the page. And never again do I see the butterfly at the same flower, the clouded sulfur and wood nymph now long gone. Some days I am all obsession and speed until weariness settles deep into bone, my body vulnerable like the earth, its softness too tender for the sharp edge of words, blades of what can never be, should never be. Is there no way to forget? Reminders everywhere, sounds of motors and voices pervade, how to disappear into the bark like barred owl, release what is not my own. Thank you so much.
Oh, wow, Roxana, that was beautiful. Those were beautiful poems. I loved bellows of whales like sheets of metal, and the recording of the sound of sheet metal shaken and nobody could guess what it was. And I love the line, her skin longs for dirt's cool sweat. And all of that last poem was just a tour de force. Thank you so much and congratulations. So next up we have Martha McCullough, another poet who will be reading from her book of poetry, Wolf Hat Iron Shoes. So excited to hear you.
Hi, thank you so much for hosting this. It's wonderful to be here. This is my book, Wolf Hat. I can't really see it. That I'll be reading from a group of shortish poems. I can find where the first one is. This was from a series of COVID isolation poems. Spring Moon. My mind turns and turns, a restless dog, uneasy in the warm room, wanting to chase the moon, to roll in starlit mud, splash in puddles, get filthy, to meet other strays by the pond in moonlight, to howl together, to follow coyotes, to observe the owl hunting in silence. My mind is tired of turning over symptoms, of telling the frightened body, go to sleep. It's nothing, nothing. It will be morning soon. There's a group of poems about a woman hero, or maybe villain, I'm not sure. This is called Her Lair. She's worldwide, can see all of the road through owlish eyes. She can tell the stars from the chickens, you'd better believe it. She finds a beehive. She whispers, wake up, everyone's gone. Bees hurl themselves down the sweet field into the blue clover. The worldwide hero can see all the stars from her control room, open to the sky, a humming, a glass dome. This is called Scale. Here at the edge of the Milky Way, everyone's got a poem on dying stars, on seeing the light of the past. How if your telescope were only strong enough, you could see time begin if it weren't for the dust. We've all seen sections of night packed with a zillion galaxies falling back and back. You start to think, an angel's wing brushing a rock 10 miles across once every 100 years until it wears away is a thing you can get a grip on, like moths writing poems about the moon. Not working. Work is our punishment, and because I am not sorry, I mean to do as little as possible. Eyes adrift like Rodin's ominous balloon, looking at nothing or the wall with great intensity. I want to see what the cat sees, insect ghosts, jitter of molecules between dust motes into some elsewhere that might be heaven, though no one here cares to find out. War movie. In the street, Team Giant Eagle is fighting Team Fresh City for the potable water. Neighbor, please don't shoot. At night, out comes everyone whose job it is to be terrible. In the ruins of the lock and load bait and ammo shop, Polyphemus wrestles John Galt for the last Kalashnikov. Here we go, all against all against all. Fired from a cartoon cannon, a head hurtles into a red abyss. Deflating thought balloons still whispering, have mercy. Abyss still whispering, no. And the last poem I'm going to read is called Flight. The soundtrack is less blackbird whistle, more helicopters whomping overhead. Surely the times call for fire. When I was a child, refugees fled through old newsreels, bundled, lumpy with small valuables, pushing wheelbarrows down burning winter streets towards some border or small town where one has a cousin. Now it's half the world in the transit of drowning and fire. We are already pacing the chilly waiting room, hoping to be awake when this is fine turns into get out now. Thank you.
Oh, Martha, wow, that was a treat. Thank you for those. I loved My Mind Turns and Turns Like a Restless Dog, and I loved She Can Tell the Stars from the Chickens, You Better Believe It, and the sections of night packed into a zillion galaxies. These are a trove. Thank you so much. Best of luck with this book. Next up, we have Rick Parr, who will be reading from his book, God Bless America and Breakfast Burritos to Go.
Exactly right. It's a travel memoir of three stories woven together. The first one has a lot of greyhounds in it. The first part of that was stumbling on a greyhound festival in Dewey Beach, Delaware, with 4,000 greyhounds and 1,000 people who love them adorably. And the second half of that first section is at a dog track up in Hinsdale, New Hampshire, which no longer exists, which is what I'm going to read from. So here we go. The sun is big and glowing and seems to be stalled over Vermont, just a few hundred yards west of here, on the other side of the Connecticut River. Two bareheaded old people from inside have moved partway outside into a thin sliver of shade. I take a spot at an empty plastic table on the far right side of the patio, down by the rail, next to the smooth, dry dirt track. Bored kids wearing green polo shirts and tan khaki pants parade bored dogs on leashes up and down the track, making sure to pause before us so that we might what? What are we supposed to be looking for? How do you tell one greyhound from another? They still look alike to me, the way they did in Dewey, big and ugly and no personality. But right at this moment, dressed in their racing colors, the dogs are Roman gladiators marching around the Coliseum before the death matches. Well, either that or Miss America contests walking the runway. An old woman sitting by herself eats hot chili and smokes a cigarette in the miserable heat. A disembodied male voice on the loudspeaker, bored and torpid and gravelly, begins to speak, and I cannot understand a word he says. It sounds like a bus station intercom voice. 4 a.m, filled with sleep, not wanting to be here, counting the hours until the new guy arrives. Two of the kids who paraded the dogs in front of us a few minutes ago hold muzzles in their hands and run down the track as fast as they can. One kid peels off at the finish line in front of me, and the other kid, much fatter and extremely sweaty, waddles farther down the track past the first turn. I watch the fast kid until he stops. Then Jesus Christ, they are fast. When I turn around, the greyhounds have already finished the first quarter of the race, moving past the patio and the four of us outside in the fierce sun. Down at the first turn in a tight NASCAR dog pack, dog number 3 cartwheels in the air and lands on its feet like it was planned. And I whisper a little cheer, "Go, number 3, go." But number 2, who is led from the start, is much faster than all the other dogs, and his lead gets increasingly large until it gets so large that on the backstretch, he begins to look around like he's lonely, like he wants a friend, like he wants some other dog to play with. And while number 2 pauses, number 8 on the outside breezes right by, as do 3 others, and number 2 finishes 5th, 2 spots ahead of the acrobatic dog number 3. And everywhere there's silence. No racing hooves, no snorting, no jockey going to the whip, and there's absolutely no crowd noise either. No one cheers, no one makes a sound. This is not crowd behavior I'm familiar with. I'm trying to think of a sport where the fans are quiet. Golf? Not anymore. Tennis? No. Chess? Yes, chess. Matinee greyhound races sound a lot like chess, only not as loud. I hear 2 guys near me talking, and I turn to take a peek. One man is, of course, very old. Nearly everyone is. The other is in his late 30s, small, barely 5 feet tall, and his chin seems to have been swallowed into his neck. In a thick New England accent, he talks about the incredibly fast but all too sociable dog number 2. And I straighten him out in a hurry. I take a gun or a bat and boom, he wouldn't do that again, that's for sure. He has a weird chuckle when he says it's kind of like an old-time movie villain. The younger guy keeps talking, angrily moving from animal cruelty to liberal Massachusetts politicians, even though at this time Mitt Romney is our governor. All those taxes, they can't fix the goddamn roads. I stand up to take a longer look and see that he's a sorry little man, has probably been ignored by everyone except for this old man, who's trying hard to ignore him too. But the little man holds him by the arm and won't let him leave. A very large GMC pickup truck with a big water tank smooths the track for the next race, and the bus station voice begins again. Again, I cannot make out what he says, and a couple of tables to my left, the old woman keeps eating hot chili, and between plastic spoonfuls, she fires up yet another cigarette. Thank you.
Well, I've never been to a dog race in my life, but now I feel like I have.
You never will, because they've shut down pretty well everywhere. So
Probably a good thing, but I was still rooting for number 3 who did the cartwheel and landed on his feet like he meant it. Thank you. That was beautiful writing.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, well, up next is Bella Breslow, who is part of a writing team with her husband, Stephen Bilius. They have a literary marriage, and this is a novel called Pilgrim Maya, newly published, that she'll be reading from.
So this is the book I'll be reading from. Thank you all, and thank you, Straw Dog, and also Forbes Library. That's wonderful to be part of this. Thank you. I'm going to read from something towards the beginning of this book. It's chapter 5, and it's a chapter that's called Jane's Story. Back at the apartment, I'm with Jane. We sit on cushions on the floor with our legs under a table. My legs fold comfortably. I fit easily, even though I'm more than a head taller than Jane. A dark red flowered quilt covers the table, topped by a tray the size of the tabletop. Sake and edamame, pickles, Japanese crackers, and dried fish that have been broiled, permeating the air with a pungent fish smell. A heater under the table that Jane calls a kotatsu warms us. I'm wearing a black and white wool shawl that I picked up at the vintage store down the street. I can tell Jane is upset, but she doesn't show it, except for a puzzling tightness in her radiant smile. I went to see my cousin, and while I was there, her dog got hit by a car. Fluffy, a black and white stray that I found in Golden Gate Park years ago. I used to take Fluffy for walks on Ocean Beach. I'm not all that sympathetic, a little distracted, but I say I'm sorry. It seems a bit over the top for being about a dog. I can't get over it, she says. I can't go on from where I am. The tone and quality of Jane's voice gets my attention. It has desperation in it, something I recognize. My gut, my chest, everything tightens. So happy and cute, always jumping up on people, never biting. Jane pauses. She's finally reaching the thing she wants to tell me. Fluffy was there when it happened. When what happened, I ask. I am totally unprepared for the story she tells. And in the next paragraph, which I'm not going to read because of the details, it's a detailing of an attack on Ocean Beach where Jane is raped. I never told anyone. After that, I broke up with Joe, my boyfriend, moved here to be alone. I only rent to female guests. Oh my God. I move over and sit next to Jane and wrap my arms around her and pull her into the warmth of my shawl. She moans softly, the wetness of her tears against my cheek. You have to go see someone. Get some therapy. It wasn't your fault. I find myself saying many of the same things that my therapist, Sarah, told me when I was on that red velvet couch in Boston. I've been keeping a journal, Jane answers. We drink the warm sake and chat until finally Jane says, now tell me. Instead of answering right away, I get up and clear the dishes. Jane waits. I sit back down on my side of the kotatsu. I take off the locket I wear around my neck, the one with Dan and Ella Rose's pictures. I pass it to Jane, who opens it and looks up at me. We were on our way to Maine to meet my mother and stepfather. Mom had never seen the baby. Her husband hated the idea that I was with a man who wasn't white. He was controlling and nasty about it. They were coming around slowly and were about to accept the situation. My mother was even talking about a wedding. I was happy. We would have a family celebration, acceptance, normality. I stop, catch my breath. A telephone repair truck hit us while we were stopped by the side of the road. No chance, I say between sobs, just headlights and then blackness. Jane comes around to my side of the kotatsu and wraps her arms around me. The next morning, we wake up in the living room, lying next to each other on the cushion, still fully clothed with my shawl as a blanket over both of us. Two women bound together by pain and loss, finding comfort and confiding to each other. After a quick hug, we get up and clear away last night's dinner. I never do this, Jane says. What, sleep on the floor with a near stranger? No, leave the dishes unwashed after dinner. We laugh. Our friendship has deepened overnight. Perhaps we have both been healed, even just a bit, by what we shared.
Beautiful, Bella. What a testament to truth telling and friendship. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're going to hear next from Sharon Tracy, a poet whose third poetry collection, is that right? Is called Landmarks, and it's out now on Shanti Arts. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing the poems.
Welcome and thanks for joining us tonight. And this is the book Landmarks. I'm going to read a few poems. It's published by the Shanti Arts and also available through Bookshop, Amazon, and locally at Amherst Books. The poems explore how the land marks us as we move through it, seeking meaning and communion. Poems move north, south, then west with roadside haikus for contemplation and rest, then spiral outward and beyond for a wider view of the world with meditations on the environment and other sentient species. I'll read 5 shorter poems to hopefully give you a sense of the collection. And I'll start with the opening poem titled, I Have Eaten Geographies. I have eaten geographies, hard bits and soft pieces, bitter, sour, and sweet, places that have talked back, made me who I am, made me ache from too much, whittled me. What we love, we love. I have sipped from a cenote, bitten a spur, savored fine strata near the mouth of a river, swallowed decades of dust, mere motes in the soul of an eon. I have settled in a valley between green hills, given birth to a daughter in a world of 1 billion daughters, given birth to 2 sons in a world of 1 billion sons. I have sun-dried my hands. Rumi said, there are 1,000 ways to kneel and kiss the ground. I have lost count. I am counting. This next poem is inspired by the field behind my house, and it's called The Field Behind the House. If you find yourself falling in love with a particular one, its furrowed brow and branching logic, its gold-stemmed grasses and earth the hue of prunes, its sprigs of red buds stiffer than brooms, and clumps of blue wild iris, maybe go with it. The land hums, though we may not know its hymns. We can try to sing them anyway. This next poem takes us to the canyons in northern Arizona. It's titled Easter Weekend in Sedona. I woke green as a praise song, was risen in that box canyon, hands of old ocean marking the way in millions. The Colorado Plateau uplifted, the sandstone pinnacled above the trail as we entered the open air cathedral. A raptor's caw cut the quiet inside the red rock walls. A trinity of dove white clouds unfurled across the blue. Then the rush of liquid air lifted high the leaves of manzanita, exposing hard limbs, chestnut-hued. I thought of all the arms, of nail and wood, dead soldiers and civilians. I tasted salt and dust on my skin. The horror of another war lay hidden in the canyon shadows. The god of rocks was silent. This ministry was all wind. This next poem takes us to Los Angeles. It's titled Outside the Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles. Ravens fly over the new skyscrapers, cutting the blue above South Figueroa Street, and I want to know what they see from that vantage point, what they eat, what rodents are scurrying where the executive helicopters land. I look around for green to touch beneath the gleaming, beyond the people on the street. What reason for the inequality of days? The ravens reel in loopy circles 60 stories high, A monstrous crane slowly lowers a row of men down the side of a skyscraper to clean its eyes, the glass as bluish green as the sea. The air washed with the sound of sirens a mile away, the homeless returning. And I'll conclude with the poem titled Autumnal Equinox 2020. The sun slipped under houses, one moment light, then a finger's small poke on the horizon to start again the dark. Animals understood, except for us who stayed inside, somehow far less equipped. We brace ourselves for days of shorter straws, a maw that won't be sated until the last drop is squeezed and doled out. Which should be no surprise, but we forget. This is the world. Gather up the children. Be alert past twilight. See that the deer have bedded down. This is the world, a half cup of light, half cup of dark. Thank you.
Wow, those were beautiful. I have eaten geographies, what we love, we love. And I loved in the field behind the house. We can maybe sing its hymns anyway. These were just beautiful, and I'm going to take home with me too. Oh, we forget this is the world.
Thank you.
You. So is Cheryl Fish on the call and able to read?
I think not. So
Okay.
the next, I'll skip ahead.
All right. Well, in that case, we are going to have another big treat. Heather Cammons is going to be reading from her new novel, The Moth Girl.
Hi, here it is. This is my debut novel. It came out last year. The part I'm going to read is from fairly early on in the book. The main character, Anna, is 15, and she's been having these strange aches and pains, but she hasn't told anybody, including her best friend, Smilla, because she does not want to get pulled off of the cross-country running team at school. But she is to find out just how serious and how strange her situation actually is. By the beginning of October, cross-country practice was excruciating. Smilla and my parents were asking more frequently if I was okay, and my lies were becoming less convincing. I made up some excuses for Coach Auntie about pulled muscles and twisted ankles, and it was a huge relief when all he did was give me a lecture about following his guidance and have the trainer tape up my ankles. I kept forcing myself to go to practice, though now I was consistently at the back of the pack. So I mostly found myself alone as I ran, trying to focus on my surroundings instead of the pain. On one chilly afternoon, the aches were especially bad, and they kept growing. And there was something else, too, something new. My feet felt uneasy, foreign, as though the arches were twisting, the muscle memory of running fading from my body. My toes curled the wrong way, my heels flexed. I felt the shock of the ground every time one of my feet landed, and though I tried to control my stride and keep it tight, I found myself bouncing much more than I meant to between steps. My feet searched for the ground, but it was like walking on the moon, my skittering steps not quite in my control. Before long, the pain began to rise from my toes, fizzing upward through my legs like bubbles through a soda straw. I stumbled forward, trying to shake it off, but it kept growing. It singed me from the depths of my tendons and bones all the way out to my skin. It traveled through my ankles and calves, my knees and thighs, and as it overtook my waist, it felled me like an old tree. I remember falling, a slow, endless descent in some direction I couldn't name, but I have no memory of hitting the ground. I was moving through space in an unsettling way, twirling and flailing, my arms and legs reaching out for something solid but finding nothing. There was noise, somebody shouting my name, and a blur of branches and fallen leaves as I whipped my head around. trying to return to consciousness and orient myself. It grew hard to breathe and I became dizzy, and then the sensation came back to me, that tearing pain through my lower legs, its tendrils constricting around my muscles. I tried to cry out, but no sound came. Faces appeared around me, and then there were hands holding my arms and legs, straightening me out. Still dizzy, I finally brought the scene around me into focus. I was upright, and Coach Ante was standing in front of me, his hands on my shoulders. I had never seen him look worried like that, even when other kids on the team had been injured. A small crowd of my teammates gathered around us, and Coach called out for them to stand back and give me room. They did, all but Smilla, who pushed closer, coming up to one side of me and taking my left arm so that Coach could take my right. The two of them held me steady as I took one harrowing step after another through the woods and back out onto the field. The sharp pain in my legs had subsided to a low, persistent throbbing, and I felt shaky and weak all over. "Are you okay?" Smilla asked, even though we both knew I wasn't. She sat next to me. "What happened?" I don't know." It was still hard to get enough air into my lungs to push out words. My legs started hurting and I took a deep breath. "I just passed out, I guess." She swallowed as if scared to say what was on her mind. "You know you weren't on the ground, right?" "What?" I tried to make sense of what she was saying, to stitch it together with my own experience. Her face looked pained, as if about to break the news that a loved one had died. "You were floating." "Floating." She nodded and reached one hand out in front of her, holding it 3 feet above the ground, about this high. Thanks.
Wow. Wow. I was listening along and thinking this is just such a great rendering of when the body fails us, but something else is clearly going on. I really want to read this. Thank you. And we're gonna end unless Cheryl magically joins us, which I hope she does.
I am here. I am here.
Let's go to Cheryl. I didn't mean we were going to end because Joshua Michael Stewart is also going to read, but let's hear it, Cheryl. This is Cheryl J. Fish's debut novel, Off the Yoga Mat. Take it away.
So this is from chapter 4. Nate is one of 3 protagonists about to turn 40 as Y2K approaches. He's been in grad school 8 years and has a hostile relationship with his advisor. Nate is writing on the topic of jealousy from the perspective of Shakespeare and Darwin, but claims he never gets personally jealous. Where is Monica Portman? Nate tapped his foot to no particular beat in a Hell's Kitchen tavern decorated with suits of armor, coats of arm, insignia, and a large metallic steins of beer. As the one in his dissertation group who always backed him and refused to kiss Offendorf's ring, Monica was Nate's golden girl. Finally, the door, like an entrance to a castle, swung open. She rushed over. "So sorry, my fiance and I sat forever in traffic," said Monica, sitting down. Fiance? In grad school, she had rarely gone out. "Thanks for reading my chapters on short notice." Waiting to hear her thoughts had blocked the reality of Nora's departure. "Anytime," Monica said, out of breath. "First, the good news. You've integrated Lear with Darwin and Freud, claiming jealousy as a death wish in family drama. So good. To quote Lear, allow not nature more than nature needs. Offendorf must hate it, but that's not the biggie," she said. "Guess what? I'm here to advise you to write a different book." "Huh?" he asked. "Write what?" "No emotion in these pages." She flapped them. "They're flat, Nate. Jealousy should torture us. I'm taken by the confessional approach, the personal angle." She removed her jacket. "Scholars should include honest realizations." He was flummoxed, unaware that personal narrative could be blended with research, a form of psychological transference. It sounded disastrous. He needed to remind Monica he didn't dwell on envy. It made everything worse. Look at the sickness that inflamed Lear's eldest daughters as well as the brothers Edgar and Edmund. In Shakespeare's time, jealousy was considered restless melancholy that transformed men into beasts. Nate recoiled from opening those gates. Monica had landed an impressive job. She flashed an engagement ring. He didn't burn with envy. Monica, you forget, I'm not the jealous type. Poor shit, Nate. Haven't you been deceived, cheated on? At some point, you must have fallen for the same person as a friend, competed for a prize and lost. Own those emotions. I've been envious. It fueled my desire to win. He laughed. So you get jealous. Why would I take the dissertation in a new direction now? It's been way too long. I know, Monica said, sometimes a new angle gets us cooking. This could lead to a fabulous job, turn you into a star. She motioned to the waiter. Monica, I'm flattered, but in fact, he had imagined himself a go-to critic, an ivory tower pinup boy. I drove Nora crazy denying I was jealous, he said. When she had drinks with a bunch of guys from work, I didn't mind. I didn't question it when she stayed out late and came back tipsy. She expected me to give her a hard time. It would indicate you wanted her. That ship has sailed, he said. She's left for some job in Finland. Finland? Sorry to hear it. She was good for you. Anyways, Offendorf asked for edits. He wants something else. Convince him to see it my way, but don't name me. I'll think about it, he said. Treat jealousy as some kind of social experiment? That's the spirit. Go out on a limb, set up a test case, record the results. If your thesis is visceral, it will generate buzz. Who reads a typical dissertation except librarians and specialists? This can be something fabulous. He needed his book to make a splash, considering all these years he struggled to perfect it. Imagine attracting critical praise from Rolling Stone, The Darwinian Case for Iago's Twisted Mind, The New Yorker, Talk of the Town, An Unfit Professor Who Thrived, a profile in the New York Times Magazine, an appearance on The Late Show wearing an Italian suit, maybe growing a small beard. Nate's insights gleaned from Darwin and Shakespeare would unnerve everyone. They'd be forced to admit the uncanny foundation of all language, thought, and action. How does their success light a fire under our sorry asses? We are primitive, petty grifters, but academic fiefdoms being what they were, he couldn't branch out till he received his PhD. I'll stop there.
No, don't stop.
You'll have to read the book.
I will have to read the book. Jealousy should torture us. And it's Darwinian. What's his thesis? Darwinian.
It's jealousy using Darwin and Shakespeare. He claims that jealousy is good for humans.
Yeah.
That it helps perpetuate the species in a strange way. But he denies he personally gets jealous. But of course, that's a lie.
There's your story right there. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, this is just so wonderful. We're gonna close out with Joshua Michael Stewart, who is going to be reading from his poetry collection, Love Something.
Hi, everyone. Yes, this is my collection, Love Something. The cover is a photograph by our confrere poet Doug Anderson. Someone recently said that my poems are a nice balance between brutality and beauty. And I will share 3 poems that I think best represent that. The first, this is titled Quills. Today, a man pressed a pillow over his 7-month-old son's face, then strangled the baby's mother, who was also his 16-year-old daughter. He called his mother, confessed, then drove out into the woods and shot himself in the cab of his pickup. A porcupine waddles through a field not far from my house. I've never fired a round at anything not glass or tin, but the summer after my mother loaded me on a plane to go live with my father, I spent nailing earthworms to 2x4s leaned along the backyard fence. Thwacks echoed off the shed as morning haze ghosted through surrounding pines. The worms writhed as I pierced their skin. Blood and shit smeared the boards. The crucified bodies dried and curled under the sun my parents both shared. The pain we receive, the little it takes to give it tenfold. I won't measure evil out of units of illness and despair. But while the porcupine munches on clover, I'll rest on a stone wall, allow the sun to burn my neck red, my hands finally at peace in my lap. This next poem, this started off, the old question of if you had the chance, what would you go and say to your younger self? And of course, I had to take it my way. So this is entitled Elegy for Who I Once Was. Summer, we were walking a country road before dawn and you were dead. I don't remember your dying, but there you were, dragging your feet, your eyes like the bottoms of glass ashtrays. Your breath, I said it smelled of death and you just groaned. I felt like an idiot. I never wanted this. I never wanted it to rain. Do you have any idea what a soggy corpse is like so early in the morning? I tried to pick up the pace, but all you could do was slosh down the road. Eventually, we came to a barn and hobbled inside to get dry. Soon the sun was up, the rain had stopped, and the insects were getting jiggy in the fields. You slumped into an empty stall. Sunlight beamed through the slits in the boards, and the dust of your body mingled with the dust of the barn, the outside world, and possibly me. Despite the decay, you look lovely disappearing like that. And I confessed, if I wasn't such a fool, I'd love you right down to the bone. Vultures usually do. It was the first thing you said all morning. And I will end with a prose poem, which is my favorite form to write in. This is entitled Yellow. I'm wearing my yellow robe, drinking coffee out of a yellow mug that has a rooster on it. When I take coffee into my mouth, I hold off from swallowing and let my tongue believe it's taking a luxurious bath. Traffic swooshes down the street. People are busy being busy. For hours, I've been planning a trip to the end of the driveway to pick up the newspaper. Ravens bicker with each other out in the yard. The cats circle my chair, beg to be let out to murder. Each day we inch our way toward death. One day, without knowing it, we buy the clothes we're buried in. We smile for a camera that snaps the shot that'll be used for our obituary. I'll probably die in this robe, but until then, I'm going to eat some waffles that come in a box that's also yellow. Often, when children draw the sun, they'll either use a yellow or orange crayon. The older, more advanced children will use both. In kindergarten, there was this kid who drew his sons in big blood red circles. The teacher once asked him why he chose red for his sons, and he said, "This is how I see it. This is how it is in my world." Thank you.
Joshua, wow, those were great. Yes, beautiful and brutal for sure. I love the line, I don't remember when you died, but there you were dragging your feet, and that killer last line, vultures usually do. And people are busy being busy, cats begging to be let out to murder. Powerful stuff. Thank you. So we're going to open it up now for questions for our brilliant authors and poets. So anyone who's got a question, you can just unmute.
You can ask each other questions too, just if you're curious. I mean, I have one just to kick it off, but I'm always curious about how people carry through with getting their book published without getting discouraged. And I'm wondering if anybody out of our authors has an interesting and hopefully uplifting publication story they would like to share about that journey.
I can talk about that. Oh, go ahead.
It was long. Took a long time.
I was going to say that there's a whole range of different options available for publishing these days. There are the five big traditional publishers that are left. And of course, you've got self-publishing as an option for people. But there's a whole variety of small presses. And I've been working with a small press, and I found the experience to be really uplifting. And so if you haven't explored small presses, you might take a look and see, because there's, dozens or hundreds of small presses. And you might find one that can work with you and partner with you to bring your book to publication.
I wrote an essay on Authors Publish, how I wrote off the yoga mat, and it involved like 13 years of frustration, rejection, rewriting. And I picked out like 3 different encounters that helped me. One was someone who called themselves a coach that helped with the pacing of the novel. The other was this great workshop at Atlantic Center for the Arts with a very supportive group of people. And then being in a writing group, I'm with one of my writing group members now here in Costa Rica, just like showing your work to people and getting feedback and taking breaks. That was important for me to like put it away for a while and come back and just keep going. But like it was hard, definitely was hard. And I almost wanted to give up a lot of times. And I also work with a small university press. So I always figure there's someone out there that it's going to be a good fit for, there's going to be someone out there that's going to love it. And don't give up. But also it's hard. It takes so much longer than you ever would imagine. I guess maybe some people are able to do it faster.
Yeah, I agree. I spent the poems in my poetry collection spanned 25 years, and I was with numerous writing groups, 3 different writing groups over that period of time. And I also, because when I was writing them, I wasn't necessarily planning this book, but I hired a writing editor and a writing coach, and she really helped me sort of move through getting out of the sort of the writing into the editing and publishing process. And I self-published through Off the Common Books, and they were amazing. Just right in Amherst, really amazing.
I'd suggest Meet for Tea, who's they're in East Hampton, they're local. They have a quarterly journal that you might want to submit some poetry or stories, and they also occasionally have some book-like things too. They're good people to work with.
Thanks, everybody.
Any other questions? Becky, I think you're always allowed to talk.
Well, I don't have a question. I just noticed the sort of common themes that sometimes ran through these works. And so I don't know what to say other than that, just that it was really sweet to sort of hear like Stephen's work, Revan, but then there were ravens through this. And then there was something, and I'm not going to remember the details of when Heather read right after the person who preceded her, that there was some sort of synchronicity in there. And I just always love that in the writing process with other people, how that comes through the airwaves, and then through this process tonight of hearing how you all sort of flowed together. And Narissa, thank you for feeding back such wonderful comments to our writers. It's so encouraging and lovely to have such an attentive MC for us. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
Well, it was
thank you.
It was a great joy to hear you all. What talent. Everybody go out and buy these books.
Absolutely. I will send out to everybody who registered, I will send you out the information about how to buy these books. And the recording will be available eventually, probably up on our Straw Dog YouTube and through Forbes Library, their website. So we can all see it and share it with people who weren't able to be here tonight. And then I see that Joshua's written that Rick Parr and he will be reading together on February 21st at the East Longmeadow Library. I'll say that there's an event in February that's a poetry revision event. And I don't have the date right in front of me. So stay tuned to Straw Dog Writers for that information.
Adam Grabowski. But I don't know, maybe Michael knows.
It's February 19th, maybe.
I thought it was the 18th, but I'd have to check my calendar.
February 18th, 10:30 at Lilly Library.
Okay.
So.
And I see
And then
that's February 7th, Writers Night Out. Is that in Northampton?
East Hampton, we're close.
It's now called East Hampton, right? But it's the one with Rick and Jacqueline.
Right, it's the Big Bear used bookstore.
Big Bear used books. Okay, great.
It's a nice place. Very homey.
Cool.
It smells of weed because that's what East Hampton smells like. Not so bad.
Well, I think that we could say that was a great night. Thank you, everyone.
That was a great night.
That was
Thank you.
great. Thanks, everybody. Great job. Great job, everyone.
Yay.
Thanks
Congratulations.
to everyone who organized.
Yeah,
Thank you.
congratulations, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yay.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Bye, y'all.